Hey everyone, this is smpratte, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I think right now too many people are overly concerned with what should I buy, what should I invest in, how much should I spend, what's going to be the next thing, what's going to be the next trend. And I really want to harp on not only understanding value, but more importantly, why being minimal is the number one core reason for success, not only in hobbies, but life in general. This book right here, which I get no kickback for plugging, The Millionaire Next Door, is essentially the playbook for personal finance. The knowledge in this book is more valuable than any individual collectible that I can show you. And what they do here essentially is break down actual wealth versus acting wealthy. And there are a number of examples I'm going to use from this book that I think will be useful for collectors and useful for a lot of people. Because at the end of the day, what we're buying here, what we're doing is trading money for collectibles. That's why I harp on the finance, because finance is part of the game. Whether we like it or aware of it or not, it is inherently part of what we do. So one of the best examples from this book, they break down two doctors who make the same exact amount of money. They're both at the top of their field. They each make $700,000. And if you want to make that more relative, chop off a couple zeros, make it more relative for that middle income bracket, the fact remains. One of these doctors' net worth is $7.5 million. The other, $400,000. Why does one individual have half of what they make in a year as their total net worth, and this other one is wildly more successful when they both make the exact same amount of money? So you see the obvious point here. There's a difference between being actually wealthy and acting wealthy. This guy who has 7.5 million, does he have the Bugattis, all the supercars? Does he have that cool new property in California that he's splitting with all of his buddies? He doesn't. That's what this guy has over here. There's a very fundamental difference of being actually wealthy and acting wealthy, and that is being minimal. They break these two doctors down in excruciating detail, and they show that this doctor over here that has 7.5 is always assessing value. He's always going through and saying, do I need to get that Armani suit? Do I need that? Let's break it down. Again, go to that middle area. Do I need a suit in general? And when I do, what should I go for? That's one aspect. Or more importantly, what's an investment? What's an expense? What's intrinsic value? If you think about the things we buy, even an Evolutions box that's gone up $0, it's still worth $90 to $100. Even though, you've already bought that 2 years ago, that's still going to be its value today. Take that same $100, go out with your friends. It's now worth zero. I'm not implying don't ever socialize. I'm not encouraging just be a recluse and do nothing but buy Pokemon cards. But at the end of the day, that's the fundamental general breakdown. Is I think a lot of people don't understand that, again, this finance that is part of the game has an actual outcome to it from a long-term perspective. I have friends, for example, who probably make anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year. I was at a dinner party recently, and they're like, why don't we have more money? Why don't we have more money? Why don't we have more money saved? As if someone else is taking their money. It's just them. And it's well, I can answer that question because, this individual went on a vacation for 4 days and probably cost them $5,000. And then they went on another vacation 3 months ago at the same rate. So it's if you're spending over 10 to 20% of your income, on pleasure and entertainment like that, that's just going to be zero. Just zero. It just goes instantly to zero. So the breakdown I'm trying to give you here, people are well, what does that have to do with Pokemon? What does that have to do with collectibles? Is that when you trim the fat of these unexamined expenses, what that ultimately does is it provides you with more capital to buy the things you want to buy. That's the core for me. I absolutely love when people are like, man, smpratte, you look at this furniture behind you. It looks like you live in a grandma's house. I'm like, sure. Fine, that's fine. Because the other day I have zero debt. I have zero expenses. It's never going to change. I realized that a long time ago I was lucky to have parents that were fiscally responsible and taught me at a young age. You hear this over and over echoed in my videos. It's not how much you make. It's not, even with collectibles, it's not how many big baller expensive cards you have. It's about what you do with what you have. So going back to this book and that breakdown about being minimal, because I chose to live beneath my means. I have a lower mortgage, which I now have no mortgage. I pay off everything. I bought my car because it was right at that price point, barely used. It's something I calculated how much I'm going to use it, what I'm going to do with it. I just optimized it and said, there we go. I got the money ready. I'm probably going to use that car for 10 years. Could I afford to have Bugatti or one of these supercars? Sure. Yeah, I could. Is it a prudent move? Absolutely not. Is it going to help increase my net worth and make me happier? Probably not. Will I probably get some likes on Instagram? Yeah, sure, probably will. But, at the end of the day, I think that general rubric is what a lot of people struggle with. Going back to this act versus actuality. Another example from this book, they take a janitor who owns a janitorial business. And they mention how he lives in a decent neighborhood, this neighborhood where everyone keeps their grass like a carpet, everything's nice and pristine. And he drives his janitor truck, and he's wearing, his janitor outfit. And the social hierarchy of things, being a janitor isn't as prestigious as being a doctor, CEO, or lawyer. And the irony is, going back to that, this is a great example of that act, because people are criticizing, they're getting squinty-eyed when they hear this guy's a janitor, just like they do when they hear a guy sells Pokemon cards. When you look at the actuality, the guy's net worth is $2.2 million. I think it was more than anybody else in the neighborhood, or at least more than the majority of the individuals in that neighborhood. But again, breaking down that act. Does he have Bugatti? Does he have French Bulldogs? Is he always like hashtagging and selfieing his entire life? No, he isn't. So, I think that is the number one rule. Even if you look at famous people, if you want to echo some of that, what was that song Jay-Z put out? About OJ. That black and white, it's explicit, but he just breaks down the difference between, assets versus expenses. And I think that's a fundamental thing a lot of people are just not focused on. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about what should I buy, what should I pinch pennies on, what should I spend, that's just the practical side of it. If your operating system, has, let's say, you're competing with people who have a solid state drive, and you're over here still trying to warm up with your dial-up connection because you have all these other expenses, you're always going to be a step behind. You're always going to be a step behind that person who's trimmed the fat, who doesn't have these needless expenses, and is able to focus more of their cash flow into what they value. Or more importantly, focusing their cash flow into something that has some type of intrinsic value, whether it's a collectible, a more conservative investment like a stock, bond, you name it. The bottom line is that is the ultimate secret to success. All I'm really saying at the end of the day is cut expenses. That's all it really is just trim the needless fat, trim the needless expenses. To give you some examples, to talk about cards here towards the end, about when some general examples of when you should pinch pennies. I think pinch versus pumping your money into the market is a real dilemma for a lot of people, because I think the counterintuitive aspect of being minimal is like, but hang on, Scott, you spend like thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year now on pieces of cardboard. Absolutely, that's kind of counterintuitive, but it goes back to that breakdown. I'm spending it on things that have been proven to hold their value in some way. And more importantly, I'm someone who didn't care in the beginning about the value, the monetary value. I just wanted the card. And I understood the rarity and the opportunity of buying that card. So a great example of, seizing the opportunity is something like that Trophy Kangaskhan PSA 9. I don't even have to do a hypothetical. We'll do a real live example. If we go back over a year now, there was an individual actually somewhat close to me who listed Trophy Kangaskhan PSA 9. I think it was $3,500. Within less than an hour, he had 9 offers, ranging from $3,000 to a little bit under $3,500. And I was like, yeah, this card is undervalued for how rare it is. I see the value, boom, just bought it. No questions asked. And that's a great example of that counterintuitive, versus pinching versus when to pump money into a collectible. Because now today, that card is easily worth double what I paid. Easily. Even that absolute, just quintessential example of how to not list a rare item. That PSA 10 Kangaskhan that had terrible starting price, terrible ending time, still ended at 20 grand. So at the end of the day, that's a good example of something that's actually rare, that's actually unique, and that's something you don't want to pinch. That's something where if you choose to pinch, all you're doing is risking that opportunity. You're risking that opportunity won't present itself again. Where things that are examples of what you can pinch on, what you can be, save $5, $10, $100, whatever it is. Red's Pikachu, set cards, Ancient Mew English, things that will be around pretty much forever. They might have a little bit of an increase there, but the bottom line is, what I'm trying to emphasize here is, deciphering when to pinch, when to pump money into the market is a daily play. It's a daily part of the game. It's constant, it's continual. So that's something I think also a lot of people, it's more on the practical end. But again, when you trim that fat, when you're minimal, you have more capital to be able to attack that moment that presents itself. That's all I did. I bought a lot of these cards when my cash flow was like a tenth of what it is today, because I just allocated that money for that moment. And moreover, that effort, You control your effort. You know, again, there's no one like that friend I mentioned who's like, why don't I have this money saved? It's like, it's your effort. Like, it's not someone else's effort. So you can control your effort at the end of the day. And I remember driving and meeting people. You know, I get on planes to do big deals. I've been to airports to get deals done. Just like what Gary did where he bought that card. That's that level of effort. That's that level of commitment. So that's, again, one end of the spectrum. The other end, which is going to be when you can pinch pennies, you know, Reds, Pikachu, energy cards, things like that. But the bottom line is being minimal is the answer. The number one thing I can just tell you that will resonate not only for collectibles but for life in general. Being minimal and eliminating that unexamined insecurities, you know, not chasing other people's insecurities. That's just going to simply give you more money to do and buy the things you genuinely enjoy. That's the number one answer. So there you go. That's a general overview, not only on being minimal, but some examples from the Next Store. I might bring out some other examples from this book because, again, they are just choice. They are just absolute quality. They just remove the curtain and say, yeah, this is how it works. Whether you're a janitor, a doctor, you're in collectibles, whatever it is. You know, there's 13 million millionaires in the U.S. alone. You know, and I think for a lot of people, they're like, oh man, $1 million is so much money. It's like, absolutely it is. It's not an easy thing to do. But when you're talking 30 years of being minimal, you know, knock on wood, not having any, you know, extremity, some crazy, unfortunate situation, consistently being minimal along the way is the best way to increase those odds. So there you go, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed this. I know it's a little bit off the beaten path. Didn't say too much Charizard and Pikachu in this video, but I felt like this is something that would resonate with collectors because, again, the finance is a huge part of this hobby. And the more value and monetary value that these cards gain moving forward, the more valuable understanding those choices will be as well. So as usual, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if this was useful. And that's pretty much it, guys. Till next time.